Hi, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition. I'm John Arezzi.
Weighing 225 pounds, John Anthony.
Looks like the road's getting a little hot now. Then he's scooped up by the tree.
How you doing, wrestling fans? Welcome to another edition of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Rewind. We took a little break for a week, recovering from a number of things, but we are back to bring you the early days of Inside Pro Wrestling Talk, covering the history of the groundbreaking radio show Pro Wrestling Spotlight, which aired on commercial radio in the New York market from 1989 to 1995. Each show brings you a different original broadcast from that era. We give you a look back at some of the breaking news, historic interviews, memories from that era. And that was an era where talking about the inside of the wrestling business on the radio was just beginning to gain some traction in the industry. On this episode, we're going to review show number 13 of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, which originally aired on 1440 WNYG in Babylon, New York. This one on July 2nd, 1989, 35 years ago. And it was jam-packed with some superstar guests as well as some interesting in-studio guests. Great callers as well, so we look forward to getting into that with Marsh in just a second here. We do want to talk to you about our Patreon account, and we are experiencing some downturn on Patreon, and I'm not very happy about that. I mean, but it's your call. For $5 a month, you get the entire archives of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, all the new episodes early, commercial-free. There's over 500 posts of audio content there. There's over 150 video content posts. There are photo sets. There are historic 8mm films from the 70s. And $5 a month gets you in, but to get all access, it's just $15 a month. So check it out. Patreon.com/John Arezzi, or you can email me for more information, john@mattmemories.com. Let's bring on our producer, our co-host, our creative director, and the man who I just had a very in-depth discussion about with the question. Marsh, did you ever hear of Darryl Strawberry?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite baseball taunt of all time. Darryl. Darryl.
Yeah. But notably, you remember him mostly from The Simpsons.
That's how I knew most of when I was a kid and just learning all that stuff, anyone who played for Mr. Burns on the Isotopes, I knew that player. And I was like, oh yeah, they're good.
Exactly. I love The Simpsons. And there's one very famous little clip that's everywhere. It's when it's the Mets opening day. They're sitting there and it's like, all right, it's opening day. First pitch. Oh, home run. Season's over.
Yeah.
The Mets were perennial losers. But we're here to talk about some wrestling, and we do have an interesting show today, don't we?
Yeah, this was funny. Just as I was listening to it, trying to figure out where it's all going, it starts off, you've got Ricky Steamboat, you've got Gary Hart on here. I think you get Eddie Gilbert on for just a few minutes.
Eddie Gilbert, yes. I think it's his first time on the show, if I'm not mistaken. But it was an interesting one, for sure. A little bit of everything, and I do want to preface this by saying that if this show that we're reviewing from 35 years ago was actually an original show that was airing in 2024, I think we certainly would have been canceled.
People would have had a lot to say, for sure. It would have been the talk of the internet for at least a day. Like, There was wild stuff here. So if you're ready to get in,
I am. I'm
with
ready
the
to
open.
jump in.
Yeah. Let's hear the open. Let's hear how you pitch it.
Yesterday, NWA heavyweight champion Ric Flair made the announcement everyone was waiting to hear.
I'm here today, number one, to announce the fact that I am going to continue in the sport of professional wrestling. And I'm here to ask a favor of Mr. Jim Herd and World Championship Wrestling to sign a match between myself and Terry Funk.
Hi there, wrestling fans. This is Mr. Wrestling, former pro wrestler John Anthony. Welcome to the special 4th of July weekend edition of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Heard each and every week right here on 1440 WNYG. A very exciting show lined up for you today. Loads of guest stars on the program. We are going to talk about that situation that developed yesterday. Ric Flair has agreed to return to wrestling, and his first match will be July 23rd in Baltimore, Maryland, when the NWA has its War Games pay-per-view in the American Bash. He will face Terry Funk for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Lots of developments on the front there. We have been contacted this week by the NWA. They have set up an interview with myself and Terry Funk to take place in Boston, Massachusetts next Saturday. We will have Terry Funk on the program next Sunday. Guest stars today include the former NWA heavyweight champion who recently lost that title back to Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He is now in a feud with Lex Luger. Steamboat will be on the program today. Also, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, who's also involved in the big pay-per-view show on the 23rd. He's going to be in Sting's corner as Sting defends the TV title against the Great Muta. Speaking of the Great Muta, we have his manager, Gary Hart, on the air with us. We also have two girl wrestlers from Boston, Massachusetts. We'll be talking to them in the second hour. And we also have the promoters of a very exciting show that's going to be taking place at the Right Track Inn, and that'll be upcoming in July. We're going to give you the dates and what's going to be happening. It's called the Battling Beauties, and we have the promoters coming in here today to talk about the girls. We're going to take your phone calls at 661-1440. Ask about the NWA. There's also big news in the World Wrestling Federation. They have announced some of their matches for the SummerSlam, and we're going to get to all that and a lot more right after this timeout.
Spotlight with John Anthony on 1440 WNYG. And be sure to tune in every time he's on, or I'll make a parking lot out of your whole city.
1440 WNYG Babylon, your community-minded station.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack on that open.
There's a lot going on, John.
Yeah, I think it was one of the first times I actually led the show off with a news story clip, major story, like a little soundbite. And that was a big announcement at that time with Ric Flair coming back after the injury and signing to take on Terry Funk at the Great American Bash, which I called the American Bash rather than the Great American Bash. I think I said that several times during that show. I didn't have it correctly. But anyway, it was a big story. We led off with it. And then, of course, the teaser for all the rest of the shenanigans, what was going to take place on this show.
Yeah, this was going to be a good one. So I was pretty stoked about it. You did end up with Sonny in studio for a short period of time. Women were not in studio, correct? Just the promoters were?
No, the women were based in the New England area, in the Boston area. Yeah. And they might have even been together when the call was made. We'll get into that later.
Yeah. We'll get into that. But yeah, there was a lot going on. Unless there's something that comes up now that you had a story about that intro, the next clip, I really wanted to know more about. You and Sonny talk about an experience you guys just had.
guests, a bunch of guests here in the studio. And we also have, as usual, kind of my co-host here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Broadway, Sonny Blaze. Before we get into the NWA situation with Ric Flair, Terry Funk, and all the exciting events taking place in the NWA, Broadway and myself Friday evening taped a television program with Joel Martin, the Joel Martin Show, that will be seen on Cablevision. I believe it's going to be airing the week after next. On next week's program, we'll tell you exactly what time and day to look for that. But that was pretty exciting, Broadway. That was a lot of fun taping the show with Joel.
I had a good time. It was my first TV interview.
And you did pretty well. He got a little out of line there for a little bit. I thought you were going to get up and kind of give him a body slam, but things kind of worked out well towards the end of it.
I like when all 5'2" Joel Martin looks at me and says, "I'm small." 6 foot tall, 220 pounds. He tells me I'm small.
Well, that was an exciting interview. We got to, anybody out there also, you get to see some footage of Broadway in action against Kid Crush show that took place in Brooklyn.
That's right, with you as my manager.
And that was the day I got my head smashed into the ring post. And also, there's some classic historic footage of myself wrestling Dusty Rhodes back in 1978. That match took place, and that was my last match of professional wrestling when I got that concussion and Dusty sat on my face, so to speak, to pin me. But that'll be aired on the Joel Martin Show, and I just want to remind everyone out there, next Saturday we'll give you the specific next Sunday rather, the time and date to look for that. Set your VCRs because you don't want to miss that. And that is the Joel Martin Show. That's on Cablevision systems, and we'll let you know when that will air. It was a lot of fun doing that.
Well, first correction. That Dusty match was not my last match. It was my second to last match because I wrestled the same night. So I don't know what the fuck was going on in my head,
What did they air? Did they maybe air in the opposite direction, so it's possible you referred to them opposite?
No.
Okay.
Dusty was first. The tag team was second. But that was that. But yeah, it was, I'm sure you want to ask about the Joel Martin Show.
Yeah, tell me about Joel Martin. You guys were excited. What were you guys even doing down there?
He invited us. Joel was a mainstay in the New York area radio market for many, many years. He was one of the originals even on WNYG. He had a late night show for many years on radio, which was about paranormal activities, haunted houses, and psychic readings. And he was one of the experts in the area for a long time, author of many, many books. And he was a friend. I knew him through NYG, knew my sister really well. And he had a local television show. So once the Pro Wrestling Spotlight started, and he invited us to come on and talk about wrestling, and we did. And it was, and I think I have a video of it somewhere. But it was, it was just kind of a sit down on pro wrestling, and we played some of those clips. And Joel is just a very intelligent guy, very historic figure in the Long Island paranormal area. I mean, nationwide, actually. I haven't talked to Joel in many years now, but I think he's still out there living in West Babylon.
That's awesome. Why was he inviting you guys in specifically?
Well, his talk show covered various things.
Yeah.
And since, we were at the station, it was pro wrestling, he found it an interesting topic. That's why he invited us to come in.
Okay.
And to help give the show a little publicity.
So it was radio?
It was television. He had a TV and a radio show. He had two.
Oh, so was this a nationally broadcasting, or was this like public access?
No, this was a regional, Cablevision was a regional cable system. And that's where Joel had his show on the Cablevision systems. It was a public access channel, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, see. Okay, that makes sense to me. Just still trying to figure out how TV worked back then. But yeah, because the way you guys are talking about being on a TV show, I could have sworn I thought he was a radio guy, so I was a little confused. And so
he did both, but I never did his radio show because there was nothing to talk about ghosts or paranormal activities until much later on when I moved to Franklin, Tennessee, which was kind of a hotbed of ghosts.
Do you? Yeah.
Well, the Civil War, the Battle of Franklin, and the paranormal. They have ghost tours here every day, and not getting too deep into it, but when my sister lived here, in the place that she lived in, there was some crazy shit going on.
So has she talked to Joel Martin?
She loves Joel. Joel and her are very, very close friends. Close friends. And there is a photograph that I took actually in my subdivision, not even where my sister lived. It was Halloween night, and it was probably, and I may have to send you the picture so you could put it up while we're, doing this when you're posting. This photograph of my nephew trick-or-treating in a New York policeman outfit, and my nephew was 7 maybe, and we take the picture, and she takes it to Walgreens to get developed. They were like one of them instant cameras,
Yeah.
Get the photos back, and the person at the Walgreens, looked, and he was like, "Boy, you got a lot of them in this one." So when you look at the picture, there are ghosts and spirits in this picture that I don't know if you believe or not believe, but it was a picture filled with unexplained images.
Like a
soldier on a horse. Like the girl who was handing us candy, there was actually a soldier's face embedded like in her arm, like on her arm. It looked like a Civil War soldier. There was multiple images, and I will send that picture to you.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, when you see it, you're going to freak. I don't know if you believe in that stuff, but it's freaky deaky stuff, man.
Well, we lived in a haunted house when I was a kid, and we all ended up with our own stories from it and stuff. But we can talk about that on our next podcast adventuring. Yeah, we'll get someone like Heidi Lee Morgan to come in and talk about ghosts.
Our new pro wrestler, ex-baseball player ghosts that are out there haunting the world.
No. Just to wrap up this topic real quick, out of curiosity, I imagine Joel reached out to you for your show and you brought Sonny along?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, yeah.
Cool. Hey, Sonny, let's get you a little airtime. See, because you're a good manager.
Oh, yeah, I got him so many opportunities, forget about it. That's why he's retired in a very lush area, Palm Beach, now, and yeah, I made him a millionaire.
You want to text him, "Hey man, I've been really thinking about it, and ever since I managed you, it's all been up for you. You get that nice house in Florida, you're welcome." You brought in Steamboat. He was heated up. I did not keep the Eddie Gilbert clip in here. We get tons of Eddie Gilbert as we go throughout the things, but I kept Steamboat because he's so riled up, and I think that's relevant. And he I kept Gary Hart because that's...
Yeah, Steamboat is very upset here, and I have a feeling it had to do with the contract negotiations that he was maybe just entering with NWA, but he was not in a good mood. Rarely was he ever in a bad mood.
Yeah.
But this time he was.
Week in New Haven. The former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Rick Steamboat. Rick, how you doing?
Oh, not bad. It's been a stressful day, I told you just a second ago.
We just appreciate you coming on with us. I wanted to ask you just a few questions. You have a situation now with what happened with Terry Funk at the Clash of the Champions. What's your next? What's the next step between you two?
Well, between myself and also Terry Funk, we're waiting to hear more word about Flair's condition. Obviously, I would like to have a crack at a chance of getting that championship back, and understanding through the NWA that Ric Flair would like to get back at Terry Funk, you know. So I think that the end result will be a decision up to Rick. I think right now he's stuck between a hard place and a rock about getting back into competition again, and also how long it's going to take for him to get back in it with his injury.
Well, just once again, the matches that you two had were tremendous matches, and you know, even the show of respect that you had and Rick had towards you before Terry Funk made the attack just made all the wrestling fans that we've spoken to just stand up and cheer, because it was something that doesn't usually happen. What happened also with the Clash a week ago? Lex Luger, without any hint at all, totally just, he clotheslined you. That must have been a total shock.
Well, you know something, I've reviewed that film several times over. To watch a man come in and in front of the face of the fans, presumably saved me from Terry Funk bringing a chair in, telling everybody, "Come on, Ricky," helping me up, taking a couple of steps, and then right out of the blue, clotheslining me. That, which is, I guess, something that had been building up inside of him for the past several months. I guess there's a little bit of ego involved, maybe a little bit of jealousy, maybe it's just professionalism. Like when I first came into the NWA, boom, I was shot right up there into that #1 slot with Ric Flair, and he felt that he should have been up there in that position.
Yeah, but you did it in kind of a different way. You did it just by pure ability, not by attacking someone from behind, especially someone you might have thought of him as a friend. I don't know.
That's very true. I think right now, my match with Lex tonight will surely determine who deserves to be in that #1 spot. I know I'm going to have my hands full because the guy's real strong. He's much bigger than I am. But I think the people knowing my track record and have seen me perform in the past, that I think I can out-wrestle him out there. You know, I'm not going to go out there hold for hold and strength for strength with a guy that's much bigger and stronger than me. I'm just going to go out there and wear him down and out-wrestle him.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, and thanks for your time again.
Thank you very much.
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, he was kind of in a very somber mood, and I guess you would be too if you had just lost the World Heavyweight title. He's been up against Lex Luger. Lex Luger, as you know, attacked Ricky Steamboat at Clash of the Champions 7, and now they've been going at it one-on-one throughout the country to determine the #1 challenger for Ric Flair's heavyweight championship. And, of course, Flair has to get by Terry Funk, and that will be July 23rd. And I really feel that Ric Flair is definitely going to show Terry Funk who is the champion when he gets him into the ring. The number here at the Pro Wrestling...
Not a happy dragon.
Yeah, I'm sensing that he's frustrated, and it sounds a little bit like he's putting it into the story, but it doesn't sound like that he's actually in a really good mood about this. You know what I mean?
No. It could be his first wife, Bonnie. You know, she was a tyrant, and she was handling negotiations, and yeah, she was a helicopter wife.
Really?
Oh my goodness!
Around a lot?
Oh my goodness! Yeah. Well, what do you think? You took her to the ring. You took the kid to the ring during that era. There was a lot. You know, there was a lot of resentment internally because of how involved she was.
Really? Like, did she get in the way, make things complicated or difficult for him? Like,
yeah, because he was, you know, she was kind of wife and manager to Ricky. I didn't have any, you know, bad experiences with her when I negotiated with her to bring him in. You know, my very first autograph signing later on in the summer, close to the fall, at Herbert Plumbing in Bayshore. Very first live appearance I did, I negotiated with her, picked her and Ricky up at the airport. But I never had any, you know, any heat or any problems with her. But there were a lot of that at that time with his first wife, Bonnie. Very well documented.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. I mean, obviously, we've all heard the stories about Randy and such, but that's interesting. So, yeah, and then apparently how much more do they get out of the story before him and Steamboat, or before Steamboat and them split ways?
Before who? And before his wife split, or before NWA?
Before he split NWA.
It came kind of out of the blue when it happened. You know, like listening back now, I could identify that that's probably when the negotiations started, and maybe they took a turn for the worse after the Great American Bash, because it wasn't long after that he was gone, and it was kind of abrupt, and it wasn't expected, and he had just been the NWA champion, not too far before that, and all of a sudden he's gone, and that's when he came on the show to discuss it. And that's what really propelled the show nationally, at least through the Observer, the Torch, and people who covered that interview. And it created a ton of news because wrestlers never did that before. Came on a show or talked publicly about a contract negotiation, really.
Yeah.
Which prompted cool. Jim Herd to come on after that. So
Jim Herd. Legendary creator of the Ding Dongs.
That's right.
Anytime I hear about them or see them, I can't help but just laugh at the interview you had with him where he goes, yeah, it didn't go as I wanted to. Their bells are supposed to be bigger.
Yeah. It's a team that really should have been the Observer Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I don't know why it never was selected.
Well, I mean, in defense of that time frame, though, all this other really good stuff is going on. So
I'm being facetious, obviously, but out of all the good stuff that was happening that summer with the NWA and how hot it was and how exciting it was, to throw a team like the freaking Ding Dongs in there out of the blue, it did not match. One of these things don't belong here.
All right. Let's skip ahead. Let's go over to Gary Hart.
Yeah. We'll have a lot to say about this after we hear it.
On tour with the Great American Bash. This is John Anthony reporting for the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. We're here with Gary Hart, with one of the most devastating and dangerous wrestlers now appearing in the NWA, the Great Muta. Gary, a lot of controversy recently. First of all, the incident that took place not too long ago with Missy Hyatt being sprayed by the green mist. Tell us who was behind that. Was it yourself or was it Kevin Sullivan?
No, it was Missy Hyatt who was behind the whole thing. If you know anything about Japanese mentality, that the women in Japan are second-class citizens and they're expected to act that way. And it makes no difference to Muta if she's an American lady or a Japanese lady. He will not tolerate a woman getting in his face or getting in his business. Women have no place in the wrestling business. The only place they have in the wrestling business is hanging around the back door, picking up a few of the wrestlers to go out with for an evening.
All right, the Great Muta right now involved with a big feud, with a feud with Eddie Gilbert.
Not a feud, it's a match. It's a series of matches in the Dragon Shy to see who is superior. And I think so far in the Dragon Shy series, the Muta hasn't lost yet, so I think it proves that he's superior.
He's one of the toughest wrestlers and one of the most dangerous that I've ever seen compete in a wrestling ring. I understand Eddie, I spoke to yesterday. He said a big match has been signed for July 23rd pay-per-view. He'll be seconding Sting for the U.S. title. Now, this must be something that makes you...
U.S. title.
For the World Television title, excuse me.
First of all, you ought to get your information right. Probably the reason you got wrong information, you talked to Eddie Gilbert, who knows very little. Eddie Gilbert's seconding, he should be thirding or fourthing. And as far as the Sting is concerned, I think he's a fantastic wrestler. He's been a great champion, but his day has come, the same as it came with all the great champions. And the Muta's the new star on the horizon, and I'm sure without too much difficulty, he'll wrestle the TV title away from the Sting on the big pay-per-view event in Baltimore.
Well, Muta is finally getting some great competition. There was a phrase that you have been using recently on television. I believe it's Gunji, or to some of the Gai-ji.
Gai-jin, that is a terminology that the Japanese use for someone that is non-Oriental or non-Asian. Someone, say, from the North American continent or Northern Europe, they would be considered a Gai-jin. Anyone with round eyes, such as yourself, you would be a Gai-jin. And it's no big insult. It's just a way that he describes Americans and Northern Europeans.
Recently on the Clash of the Champions 7 also, Eddie Gilbert tried to take revenge on the Missy Hyatt incident by throwing fire, which I understand Muta fears greatly.
I'd say, if anybody knows the background of the great Muta's father, the great Kabuki in a match received a very serious burn on the side of his face, and that's why the great Kabuki started painting his face in the style of the Kabuki dancer from Japan. And Muta doesn't want that to happen to him. As you can see, he's a very handsome young man.
Anything new on the horizon as far as any other proteges coming into the Gary Hart stable?
Not right now. I'm devoting all my time to the great Muta. We want to have a successful title with the Sting, and then we'd like to go on, be it Ricky Flair, be it Ricky Steamboat, be it Terry Funk, whoever ends up on this round-robin thing, then I'd like to have Muta have a shot at the world's title, and I think you'll agree, I think he could beat either three of the guys.
Well, he's definitely one of the best in the NWA right now. Thank you very much for your time, Gary.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Gary. Back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Before we go...
I don't think he liked me.
He definitely stopped everything you said. But I'm not sure if he didn't like you or if he had a very specific thought or vision for what he wanted said and done. And since it's not scripted, you started to say things that he was like, no, I want to say something else. You know what I mean? It's hard to say. But he was a bit bullish in there.
Yeah, it wasn't a feud. It was a series of matches. I didn't know what a Gai G was. I didn't know how to pronounce it or whatever, so I was corrected there. And the championship match, I said it was U.S. title, but it was TV title. So, yeah, it was like just being corrected one thing after the next.
Yeah.
But that's life. What are you going to do?
Yes. How long did Gary Hart how long did Gary Hart manage Muta?
For a while. I mean, that was the hot summer for Muta. I mean, I don't know how long he lasted after 89 as manager there. So I can't really, it's so long ago, Marsh. I can't wrap my head around the little details like that. I don't know.
No, but you would remember if it was an ongoing long thing, but like you just
said. I don't think it was
multi-years.
Yeah, I don't think it was multi-years. Yeah, but it was that was a hot run that when he debuted, and he was unlike any performer I had seen previously, and he had so much charisma and was so talented, and this work rate was great, and it was believable, and the mist and all of that stuff. It was just kind of a very cool thing to see in '89, where I wasn't that exposed to a lot of Japanese wrestling. And my traditional experience is watching guys like Professor Tanaka, Mr. Fuji, and all the others that competed. To someone to be like Muta, who I called Muta or whatever. I didn't even have his name right. It was just kind of something I had not seen up to that point, which was so tremendous to watch.
Yeah, he's cool. He's one who stuck around with me as a kid too, just in my mind. Like, I didn't watch a lot of WCW or NWA growing up, like I've said, but I did watch him time to time, and I remember being blown away by that guy. Yeah. And obviously when he came back during the 90s, I remember, again, just like, this guy's incredible.
Yep. Yeah. And I can't believe he, was around up until just about a few years ago when he finally retired. He's had a nice run.
Amazing run. And I don't remember, like, just from different interviews, I've never heard anybody say anything about him being tough to work with, difficult, hard. He never screwed anybody over. No one's got some sort of weird story about him. They all have funny stories about him because he played into things. Sting's got a few fun ones, but yeah.
But he was respected by the boys because of how good he was.
That's awesome. Do you want to get into the meat of the matter here, John?
The meat of the matter. Yeah. Yes. Let's.
Actually, before we get to this ad that goes into what's going on in studio, one final question about Muta. Did you ever get the chance to work with him much? Like, did you ever have him at one of your signings or anything?
No. I mean, the only Japanese performer that I brought in at one of my conventions was Jushin Thunder Liger, who was the hottest Japanese wrestler of that year in '92. But no, didn't have a chance to work with him. I would have liked to. It would have been great.
Vargas Promotions, in conjunction with the Right Track Inn of Freeport, present Battling Beauties, beautiful girls letting it all hang out in boxing and wrestling matches. The Battling Beauties appearing live at the Right Track Inn on Sunday evening, July 16th. That's the Battling Beauties. You won't want to miss them. Sunday, July 16th. The Right Track Inn is located at 40 West Merrick Road in Freeport, just 5 minutes from the beach. Doors open at 5 p.m. Show starts promptly at 6. Call 568-1463 for further information, or call Vargas Promotions at the same number, 568-1463, to book the Battling Beauties at your bachelor party, summer pool party, or other special event. And if you're a hot female, Battling Beauties is always looking for new girls. Earn big cash. Call 568-1463 today. And don't forget, the Battling Beauties live at the Right Track Inn, Sunday, July 16th at 6 p.m. Be there. That should be a very exciting show, the Battling Beauties. We have the promoters of that program here in the studio with us. We're going to get to them after we take a couple of calls at 661-1440. First call comes from Billy, and he's in Deer Park. Pro Wrestling Spotlight, you're on the air. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, he beat Dusty Rhodes September 17th, 1981.
That's the correct answer.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas, you even know the place. All right, Kansas City, Missouri, and you're Billy from Deer Park?
Hello. Park.
Yes, how you doing? All right, you are a winner. Now, what we'll do, we'll put you on hold, and the producer will give you, let you know where to pick up this program. Thanks a lot. 661-1440. We have Nick from Massapequa on. Hello, you're on the air. He's not there. Okay, that was that. What was wrong with that? That sounded like a lot of feedback on there. It was probably the connection. But anyway, right now...
We had a bad mic there.
We had a bad mic there. Okay, right now in the studio with us, we have Jonathan, we have Eddie, and you guys are the promoters of the Battling Beauties, and this takes place... the first show is July 16th?
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's at the Right Track Inn.
Right.
Okay, now tell us a little bit about the show.
Okay. Well, the Battling Beauties, it's a... the whole concept is kind of in between boxing and wrestling, and the girls, they come out in bikinis and lingerie, and we introduce the girls to the how can we say, to the audience this way. These girls are professional girls. They
have been training.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes. They train quite frequently, and the girls, they come out and they get into the ring and they box, and they do a couple of rounds, and then afterwards they rip their gloves off and they start wrestling, and it's a real good show.
So they box and wrestle.
Yeah, they do. Right.
Okay, and how do you find the girls to participate in this sort of activity?
Well, there's a special breed of girl that really gets into this. It's not that easy to find them, but we do scout, clubs, discotheques, beaches, as well as other places, sporting events. And a lot of the girls are quite interested in this, but it takes a lot out of them, and just not any girl could really do this. It takes a special type of person.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure I'm going to be scouting the shows myself that you do to look for any prospects for the professional wrestling world.
Oh, sure.
Because if they're out there battling each other, you might. There's big money in pro wrestling as well.
Oh yeah.
So you guys could maybe even become wrestling managers down the line.
Yeah, that would be super. Yeah.
Let's talk to Eddie for a second. Sure. Eddie, how
you doing, John?
Doing pretty good. Now I understand that the girls that you have participating in this contest, in the Battling Beauties, there's some knockouts. Really,
these girls are the best looking girls.
No pun on words.
We've been all over the East Coast, from Florida up to New York, searching for just the right girls to work for us.
Mm-hmm. So they're pretty good looking.
These girls are great. We've been to every health club, every beach, every body shop.
I'd like to give them my personal endorsement, but I don't know how good looking they are. What do you say if maybe you bring a couple down here maybe for next week? for me to take a look at them, do a couple of interviews to promote the show, and see how good looking they actually are.
Anything for you, John.
So that's a go then.
You got it.
All right, super. Now next week we'll do that. And also one last thing. Now you have a number where people can call you to perhaps understand you can have bookings throughout the summer, maybe pool parties, bachelor parties, or whatever. Why don't you give us a number where our listeners maybe could get a hold of you guys, and maybe if they want to book the Battling Beauties at your pool, their pool parties or bachelor parties or whatever.
Sure, John. They can call us anytime at our hotline number, 516-568-1463.
That's our producer, Bruce, is already writing the number down. He's having a party sometime this summer, and I'm sure he's going to want some of the Battling Beauties there. He's giving us a big grin. But anyway, we'd like to take the time out right now to thank Jonathan and Eddie for coming in, the promoters of the Battling Beauties. And once again, they're going to be appearing July 16th on a Sunday at the Right Track Inn. Doors open 5, show starts at 6, and it should be very exciting. If I wasn't on the air live that day, I'd certainly make it down, but I understand there'll be shows throughout the summer, so I will definitely be able to hit one of those. And everyone out there, the Battling Beauties, July 16th, Right Track Inn in Freeport, 5 minutes from the beach. Y'all come down and see some exciting women boxing and wrestling. Now, if as you know, the WWF right now has no women wrestling. The NWA has no women wrestling. So this is a good opportunity for you folks out there to see some exciting women wrestling. So go out to see the Battling Beauties at the Right Track Inn and give these guys a call if you want to book the girls at a party of yours. So thanks a lot, guys, for stopping in. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much. And let me just repeat that number, 516-568-1463.
All righty. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks a lot.
We'll be back with more of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Take some more calls at 661-1440. Have some more interviews lined up, and we'll be back with all of that right after this.
Okay. WNYG.
All right. Where do you start?
Do you know who these two guys are?
Yeah, they're Eddie and the other guy.
Yeah, but like, were they guys you knew before, or were they guys you reached out and this is the first you ever heard of them?
I probably saw an ad in Newsday or one of the local papers that I cut out, called, said I had a wrestling show, met with them, got some sponsorship, and brought them in.
Yeah, I thought it was clearly a sponsorship deal because you had that big long read. You interviewed two of the women and the guy. I'm sure you just included that all in the price, right? Sponsor me for this long, we'll give you some airtime.
Absolutely, Marsha. I always cut a good deal for my sponsors. I mean, it was kind of crazy how it even started before even that, because the kid, I had asked a trivia question, and as a kid being fed the information by a much older person, whoever it may be, the Dusty Rhodes beating Ric Flair thing. So that's the way it started. And we're talking about Battling Beauties, and then you have like an 8-year-old kid calling in. But this was kind of a, it was like a 3-week, 4-week deal up until the live show. And I did have 2 of these Battling Beauties in the studio on the next show. Goldie and Desire had come in with the promoters. And I'm pushing it hard, and just kind of a, teaser for even a couple of weeks from now, because I have an in-studio guest who's probably one of the most legit female wrestlers, Robin, whatever her name was, Robin Smith. What was her name? Rockin' Robin? Yeah, had come into the studio to do an interview, and there I am promoting the Battling Beauties, which is so much against, because she was talking about how misogynistic and everything else like a woman wrestling is, and then there I am promoting the Battling Beauties.
Wow.
Too.
How many weeks out is the Robin one?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Like next week is... Next week, I have the actual Battling Beauties, 2 of them in the studio with the promoters, and that was probably well attended by some of the male employees at WNYG, and so we'll have to get to it and see what happens. But it was crazy sponsor, and it was definitely a TNA show. It wasn't anything more than that.
Which was funny because you're also trying to find a way to make it both sound like it's not that, but also let people know that it is what it is. Because you keep asking them, like, oh, they're trained fighters, right? They do all this training, and they're like, yeah, they work out their bodies.
we find them on the beach. We find them in discotheques. We find them everywhere.
Where do you find these fighters, these athletes? Where you find all fighters? At the beach.
Yeah, that's where they are. Tough girls on that beach, especially in Jones Beach down there in Long Island. You know, you find a lot of these really tough fighters there.
Well, I mean, it's so funny because it just lets you know there's just these two dudes who are going out all the time and walking up to these women, and all sorts of women who you never hear from again, even, who just go, hey, do you think you'd be into like some wrestling or boxing?
Yeah. Hey, it wasn't my first foray into this. This was my first foray into it, but it wasn't my last.
Yeah.
Because as we get to the future, we then, do a deal with Billy Dean's Hot Oil Women Wrestling, which was basically held at a strip club. And I recruited Cactus Jack to be a special guest referee during one of the Hot Oil Women wrestling events that we had a photographer, Richard Nieva, show up to, and it was in the wrestling magazines. And of course, at that time, Mick was just getting close to his girlfriend, who eventually became his wife. And when that magazine came out, he would not. He would like, this is kayfabe. Colette can't see this. But he had in reality he had done the promotion before or just around the time he was meeting her. So magazines came out months later. But anyway, this was my first foray, but not my last when it came to this stuff. And of course, down the road we have live remotes at the famous strip club Scores. That's the other side of me, Marsh.
It wasn't the proudest time of my life.
For my younger days.
Well, I think it's pretty crazy. It's pretty cool. But let me see. Did I have any other notes on them? Yeah, no. I just like that you were telling them to bring in some hot women. That, hey, if you are a hot beauty and you call this number, all that stuff. It was so fun.
Yeah. It wasn't. It was what it was. What it was.
And I'm guessing that you don't recall any standout women from this who actually went on to do some other stuff.
Maybe some videos or films.
The apartment stuff, right?
Or more. Who the hell knows? I don't know. It was like a one and done. You do the deal. I wasn't even there because I was on the air when the promotion took place. I mean, when they actually had that show at the Right Track Inn, which was really a glorified rock club.
Yeah.
On the island.
Do you want to get into Brittany Brown? You have her on the phone here.
Yes, why not?
Yeah.
And she was a good, I met her, a good person, nice girl, all of that. And it's just kind of like when I reviewed this show, when I heard this show, and you look at what we are today in 2024, and back then, 35 years ago, I mean, she was really legit, trying to be a legit pro wrestler. And she really put a lot into her career. So when I listened back at the interview and how I concentrated more on her looks than her skills in the ring, I'm kind of like, boy, has time changed for the better. But back then it was a different era. So let's go to break.
Attention, this is Sergeant Slaughter, and you're listening to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight with John Anthony on 1440 WNYG. Don't touch that dial, and that's an order.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Slaughter. And we're back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, our second hour. We have guest stars upcoming. As a matter of fact, we got one right on the phone right now from Massachusetts, one of the new lady wrestlers, and we're going to get to her right now. Hi, Brittany.
Hi.
Hi, you're on the air with us.
How you doing?
How are you doing?
Great.
Now, tell us your ring name once again. It's Brittany?
Brittany Brown.
Brittany Brown. And you're from the... where are you from originally?
Originally from a small town outside of Stockholm, Sweden.
Uh-huh. Well, also, let me remind my listeners right now to please hold your calls off until we finish the interviews upcoming with Brittany. And also, we have someone that you've been feuding with. We'll get into that in a little bit. Rosebud is her name. She's also from the Massachusetts area. But please continue, Brittany. You tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, right now, I'm staying in Duxbury, Massachusetts. I have a summer home there. And I began wrestling about 5 years ago. I started out with the fabulous Moolah in Columbia, South Carolina.
Couldn't ask for a better teacher.
That's right. That's right. And I have one of the top teachers right now. I have a current trainer, Tony Altamore.
And Tony as well. He used to hold the tag team title with Captain Lou Albano years ago.
Right.
I just recently did play-by-play for the ICW with Tony Altamore, and that's when I met you, Brittany. And I got to tell you one thing, and I got to tell the listeners out there right now. I think are you 6'1"?
Yeah.
6'1", beautiful blonde. Why did you decide to get into the wrestling business? You know, you're a gorgeous girl. You could have been a model.
Well, I tried that when I was younger. It really wasn't what I was interested in. I had always liked wrestling ever since I was a young child.
Uh-huh.
And my father had always watched it. We always watched it together. And then I met Moolah, and we went from there.
Well, definitely. So have you been wrestling here in the States? Now, where in the States have you been doing some of your shows?
Well, currently in Rhode Island, in Massachusetts. I have a match upcoming this week in New Bedford, Mass.
Okay, where is that? What date is that?
That is the 7th. I believe the 8th, I'm sorry.
It's on a Saturday?
Yes.
Okay, because that's the night of the NWA show. Your show, from what I understand, I think I heard something about it. Is it an afternoon show by any chance?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So maybe we could, we could shoot over there before the NWA show and report to the fans out here how Brittany Brown is in the ring. From what I understand from Tony Altamore, he says on the TV commentary while I was with him that night, it's just definitely that you're one of the best new female wrestlers in the business.
Well, we can thank him for that.
Definitely. Let me ask you a serious question here. Recently, the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, has phased out women's wrestling. The NWA also does not have many women at all participating on their programs. Do you find it hard now to get work, knowing that the two biggest alliances have kind of phased out women's wrestling?
I really do. I do. And I can't understand why they've phased it out. And I'm going to try to work with some other girls that I know to try to phase it back in.
Well, I think it's very important because the women wrestlers that I've seen over the last 20 years of myself following wrestling are great athletes, from the fabulous Moolah on down to Wendy Rector. Wendy, who's now the AWA World's Women's Champion, and she's one of the best in the business. But there's so many fine women wrestling athletes out there that it's really a shame that the WWF has phased out their title. And the NWA, I believe that they should definitely add more women as well.
I agree. I'm hoping to see more women on the cards. I don't know what the problem is, but like I said, I'm going to try to do something myself and a few other women wrestlers. We're going to be speaking with at least one of those leagues that you mentioned, and hopefully we can phase it right back in.
Yeah, I understand that the new organization here on Long Island, the ECW, the East Coast Wrestling Alliance, they're looking for some of the top women wrestlers to participate on their shows in the Long Island area. Have you been contacted by these promoters yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so that is a possibility of the fans here in Long Island seeing Brittany Brown in action. That would be great.
Yep, that's correct. I have spoken with them on a couple of occasions, and hopefully we'll be working with them this fall.
Oh, that'll be super. So the fans here in the Long Island area and parts of Connecticut who we reach could see Brittany Brown in action, and we're looking forward to that. Brittany, who is the toughest, not the toughest opponent today, but let me ask you this question. Who do you think today, besides yourself, is the toughest woman wrestler?
Boy, I'll tell you, putting up a fight against the woman I'm going to be fighting this week, Rosebud, she is a tough cookie.
I've heard she came out of the Kowalski school, I understand. Killer Kowalski trained her, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, that's correct.
And Killer was one of the toughest wrestlers in the world. We had Killer on not too long ago, but if you're facing someone, like Rosebud, who came out of the Kowalski school, you must be in for a tough encounter.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm confident that I can take her on, but she is an awfully tough opponent.
Mm-hmm. So do you wrestle by the rules in the ring, or are you kind of a rule breaker when you're in there?
I like to say I wrestle by the rules, but my opponents don't exactly agree.
Well, we wish you the best of luck in your career as a female women's wrestler, and we hope to see you here in the Long Island area in the fall with the ECW starting up, and we'd like to check you out next week, but the listeners out there, remember the name, Brittany Brown, because she's beautiful, talented, and next Saturday, hope to see you wrestle, and we'll give the fans a full report here on the air.
Great, we'll hope to see you then, John.
Okay, thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Brittany Brown. Now, I was introduced to Brittany at the ICW show in Central Falls, Rhode Island, not too long ago. Tony Altamori, one of the top wrestlers back in the early days of wrestling, introduced me. He's training her right now, and let me tell you something about this girl. 6'1", beautiful blonde. Unbelievable. She doesn't look like a professional wrestler at all, but hopefully we'll get an opportunity to see her in one of her matches next weekend, and if not next weekend, definitely when this ECW league starts up in the fall.
Brittany Brown.
Yes.
Do you remember her illustrious career after this?
I know that she was pretty active for a while, and she continued a career for quite a while after that. She never quite made it to WWE for whatever reason, but she gave it her best shot.
Yeah. Do you remember many of these women? Because, like we said, hey, they're scouting at beaches. Do you feel like that the women that they did have ultimately on the show, were actually pretty good at this thing? Or do you think it was kind of a mess?
Well, I mean, Brittany Brown never did a Battling Beauty. She was a wrestler.
She wasn't part of the Battling Beauties? That's how you had her on, I thought.
No. I just brought her on because I met her at a ICCW taping. Tony Altamori was there. I did play-by-play with him for Savoldi, and he was one of the people training Brittany.
No kidding. So
You're way off base there, my friend. I think.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, that's why you have Brittany and Rosebud on.
Caffeine. No, not at all. It was a totally separate thing.
Just thematically was so close that it just confused me.
Yeah, it was kind of like so different that I have, promoting Battling Beauties, and then you have legit female wrestlers that I met at a indie show while I was doing some announcing, and met her through Tony Altamore. Who was, if you're not familiar with him, he was one of the mainstays in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, tag team with Lou Albano, part of the Sicilians, and stayed in the WWF for many years. So I met her through him. She was a New England girl, yes. And Rosebud, who was the girl she was fighting, was trained by Kowalski. So that was totally different. Battling Beauties and the Brittany thing, no correlation, other than that they were all women.
Just poor timing to put them all in the same episode. Or maybe not. Maybe you're trying to flesh out the Battling Beauties out of the taste of your mouth.
No, I probably made promises and then sold the advertising, and that's the way it worked out, Because I had just done the TV taping not too far before that, and she kept in touch with me, and she wanted to come on, and I agreed to have her on, and also the girl that she was going to be fighting up. And I was promoting an event that she was going to be working against Rosebud.
That's awesome. And Rosebud was trained by Killer Kowalski. So do you want to hear about her too?
Yeah, you got some sound of her, I guess, right?
Yeah, I've got Rosebud.
Okay.
Because I mean, you don't hear that a lot about the women who come out of Kowalski's camp, Mm-hmm.
So that should be pretty interesting. Broadway, I haven't really talked to you very much today. You've been busy with the promoters of the Battling Beauties today.
I was looking at some of the pictures of the girls.
You're looking to train some of these girls? Is that what you're looking to do?
I welcome the opportunity.
I'm sure you do.
These girls were hot.
Mm-hmm. Well, Broadway, maybe you segue in kind of doing some moonlighting as a wrestling trainer now. Well, I understand also we have another guest on the air. Now, this is what we're trying to do in today's show as well is promote women's wrestling, because with the big leagues trying to phase it out, we're trying to do whatever we can to promote wrestling. We have this girl who was trained by Killer Kowalski. Her name is Rosebud, and she's on the line right now. Let's try to get her on. I understand we're speaking with Rosebud.
Yes, you are.
Rosebud, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
This is John Anthony. You're on the air, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. We just got off the phone with Brittany Brown, who I understand is going to be taking you on next Saturday.
Yes, she is.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. I understand that you were trained by one of the all-time great wrestlers of professional wrestling.
Yes, I was trained by the best, I believe, Walter Kowalski.
Right, and he was one of the roughest wrestlers in the world, so I take it your style is kind of a roughhouse type of style?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so anyway.
Well, I heard a little bit about you before the show today from one of the reporters that we have on each week, Don Liable, who's a reporter for several of the top wrestling magazines, and he said that he's heard of you, that you're one of the top new young stars in wrestling today.
Yes, I am.
Well, tell us how you got involved in wrestling.
Well, I work out a lot at a gym around my hometown, and one of the men at the gym thought I had the potential to become a wrestler. And he introduced me to Walter, and Walter and I hit it off really well, and he could see the potential that I had also. And I've trained at the school. You know, I was on a real tough training regimen, and then just it's taken off since then.
So how long have you been actually wrestling?
About a year, but I was training for about a year also.
I asked Brittany the same question. I'm going to put it to you the same way. Now, the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, has kind of phased women's wrestling out. They have announced that they're phasing out women's wrestling. The other large organization, the NWA, rarely has women on their shows. Do you find it difficult finding work because of the two major organizations phasing out women's wrestling?
Not really. I believe there's always a place in wrestling for women. Women are in great demand in this sport, and I've found quite a lot. As a matter of fact, the promoters from a new up-and-coming league called the ECW have recently contacted me, and negotiations are currently in progress.
Oh, okay. So. Yeah, because Brittany said they had contacted her as well. You know, they are definitely looking for some of the top new women wrestlers. They're trying to promote young stars as well as established stars. But they did get in touch with you already. Super. Can you tell me who the toughest person that you might have faced in the ring up to this point over the last year?
Over the last year, I'd have to say Brittany is one of the toughest ones. I have to give her credit for that. And another tough wrestler I've also met in the ring is the Black Venus.
Okay, I've heard of Black Venus. I've seen her on some shows here in the Long Island area.
Yes, I'd have to say she has been my toughest opponent.
Okay. Who is in your opinion, besides yourself, who's the best women's wrestler today?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd have to say Judy Martin and the Black Venus.
Okay. All right, those two. Do you ever have any aspirations maybe to take on Wendy Rector for that AWA title?
I hope so. Well, that would be great.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I talked to Brittany a little while ago. I'd like to see you two in the ring against each other, and I know your show next Saturday is before the NWA show, which I'm attending in Boston.
Yes.
Maybe we could check you out in the ring and give the fans here a full report, but if not, with this new group, the ECW, having shows in the fall, we'll definitely see you then in action.
That would be great.
All right, listen, you have the best of luck in your young career, and we hope to hook up with you face-to-face in the near future, and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care, Rosebud.
You too.
That was Rosebud. So we got two of the new up-and-coming young female stars in the business today. And, Broadway, I understand that you hooked up with one of the all-time great female wrestlers. You had an opportunity to see her earlier this week, Kitty Adams.
It was a thrill. I recall watching her when I was younger on the old WWF show. Every now and then, not often. And recently we were at a party together. And as tough as she was in the ring, and I recall she took on two men in a handicap match in Texas once.
Yes, she's a classic.
Everyone talks about Kitty Adams as being one of the all-time toughest lady wrestlers, her and Fabulous Moolah. She was one of the most charming women I ever met.
She was.
Absolutely Southern Belle type.
Well, we're going to hope to get her on the program here. Kitty Adams is definitely... I remember some of her classic encounters with Fabulous Moolah back in the Nassau Coliseum in the Northeast. She was one tough cookie.
They fought as tough as any two men you've ever seen in the ring together.
Exactly.
So much there, Marsh. There's so much there in that little segment from, talking to Rosebud, but the ECW references more than anything else from Brittany, and us not even acknowledging that it was actually Broadway and myself trying to put this promotion together. It was just all kayfabe bullshit because it never happened. We tried. We were trying to get venue. We were trying to get money. But yeah, it was, this was almost like a whole entire kayfabe episode of working the audience.
Yeah.
Which I look back at it now and I'm like, boy, this was fucking horrific. It really was. I mean,
For ECW, you guys were going with Eastern, correct?
Yes. East Coast.
East Coast.
East Coast Wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then,
but it was kind of like delusions of grandeur, what the fuck, I'm on a radio station that can't be heard, in any wide area by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know. I don't know if it was, I got to talk to Al. We should bring him on as we get further into this ECW conversation and kind of, I think it was his idea.
To do ECW?
Yeah.
And you guys wanted to have an emphasis on women's wrestling, it seems. Not like
we wanted to have them involved, but it was kind of like starting this little promotion out on Long Island to run shows in on a regular basis, but not really even knowing the realities of how do you do it.
Yeah. And you wanted legit women's wrestling on there. You didn't want gimmicky wrestling on there.
No, but it's still just like the whole concept of the thing of, of even trying to make something like that happen. It just seems unrealistic 35 years later. And back then, being much younger in my 30s or whatever, and him, being someone just breaking in and starting our own promotion, it didn't seem like a viable or realistic venture.
No, but I could see how it made sense in the moment. Hey, we'll start our own thing. Why can't we? Like, Sonny's already helping people train, so he's got access to a ring.
Idea. Yeah.
So then it's like, hey, we got a ring, we got people, we know everybody. Why can't we? You know what I mean? Like, I could see the thought process of like, what's stopping you from doing it at all? Now, as far as like what's stopping you from blowing up and having a national presence, then there's a lot, but
you're just trying to figure out what my mindset was 35 years ago and having Al there every week with me and exchanging some of these ideas. And, so it was an interesting time period. And then bringing these women on and the fact that we were already reaching out to individuals when we don't have nothing set was not really good.
That's a good point, too. You asked both of these women if they have heard from ECW wrestling, and they both said that they have reached out. You would have been the one who reached out, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, so you basically asked them on the air, hey, did I call you?
Or like before we had both of them on the air, telling them to bring it up.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Do you remember, I mean, I know as we keep going, like you don't end up doing ECW in general, but do you remember if you end up using these women on any of your shows you did have?
I never did. Although Brittany might have been at one of my conventions.
Yeah.
It seems like everybody was at my conventions.
Do you remember what happened with Rosebud? Killer Kowalski trained is pretty dope.
I don't know. I could definitely tell she was from New England with the accent and all, but I don't even recall ever seeing her work.
All right, John. We do have this phone call. We start off with some Sonny Blaze. TJ from Deer Park calls in. It's just a classic moment.
Wrestling John Anthony. Mr. Wrestling John Anthony. So, what we're doing right now at 661-1440, that is the number to call. We're going to take a couple more calls in just a minute. Broadway, I understand also that the promoters of the ECW, I think they got a hold of you this week.
I spoke to them Thursday over the phone. They called to tell me that they've been listening to the show and they wanted to warn me that it's not a punk organization. And that's exactly what they said. We don't want punks. You walk away from the ring, you're fined. you lose like a man in the middle of the ring. I told them I never walked away from the ring, but they just wanted to cue me in.
Well, I guess they're just trying to get the top talent available.
I think they were trying to shake me off. They were telling me, tossing out names.
You, in other words.
Yeah, Ivan Koloff, Pedro Morales, David Sammartino.
Hey, those are some rough customers.
Let me ask, if I score a pinfall win over Pedro Morales, right? How long do you think it would take me to gain worldwide notoriety?
Instantaneously.
I welcome it.
Well, you welcome the challenges that are upcoming with the ECW, and we wish you the best of luck there.
I appreciate you speaking to them on my behalf.
Well, you're one of the top wrestlers, in my opinion, upcoming, and hey, you're here you're basically from this area. It's an East Coast title that the tournament is going to be up for grabs, and you have a good shot.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, let's take another call. I understand we have our old pal TJ from Deer Park. TJ, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
How you doing, man?
Hat once again to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
Well, hey, man, you're one of our number one listeners, number one fans of the program, and you're just a maniac. What can I tell you?
Thanks a lot, John. I appreciate that. Well, the one thing about me is I hate cartoon character howdy-doody type wrestlers. And I wanted to
why do you wear those outfits that you wear for?
That's a good one. I wanted to ask you a question. If One-Man Gang, Akeem, the African Dream, and the Big Boss Man end up feuding, is there any chance you think that the Akeem will become One-Man Gang once again?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think so. I think he'll be Akeem for a while until he maybe gets deported back to South Africa.
And, by the way, John, bad news. They did it again. The Ding Dongs were wrestling today.
Oh, no.
And they're in light blue, little boy blue, fairy tale type costumes, and they're fan favorites because they hand out bells to the kids.
Oh, they're handing out bells. I understand now the Ding Dongs have started working. They will start working as of July 10th full-time in the NWA. And they're going to be, they've signed a series of matches against the New Zealand militia. So I think it's a mistake on the NWA's part. I'm here each and every week because I love the NWA. I love what they're trying to do, and with wrestling for the most part. But I think this situation with the Ding Dongs, I really feel that they definitely taking a step backwards.
Once again, the boos were all over the place. There were a lot of fans that were starting to get into them.
Were the bells falling off?
Yeah, they were all over the ring again. Right, they were. And one more thing.
That's dangerous, though.
Did you see that Dusty Rhodes thing with him in the bathroom?
No, I heard. Tell us about that, because I missed.
Dusty Rhodes in the bathroom?
Yeah, I understand he was cleaning toilets yesterday.
That's right. He was cleaning toilets. They showed the dirty toilet and everything. And you can take a look at Dusty Rhodes, and he's licked some balls. But this is ridiculous. The man. But seriously though, they did this, and they're going to keep this skit up. That he's the American Dream. He's going to go from this chore to that chore to the other chore. Why doesn't he get in the ring? I want to see him wrestle.
Well, from what I understand from reports from different people, that once Dusty entered the WWF, he was getting over tremendously with the crowd. People were cheering left and right until these promos started running, and now he's not going over as well because he lost a lot of the respect that he had over the years by doing these stupid promos.
That's right. Dusty Rhodes has always had an image of being the all-American wrestler, and people like him don't really need that because they have a name already.
Yes.
3-time world champion scrubbing toilets?
Yeah.
Yep, he was scrubbing toilets.
Delivering pizza, scrubbing toilets, spitting on windshields.
Hey, aren't you the
American Dream, yeah.
And
it's turning into the American Nightmare.
That's exactly what it's turning out to be. Before I go, wish you guys a happy weekend.
Hey, you too.
Good holiday, and remember,
watch out for those fireworks.
Larry Zbyszko, AWA World Champion. And we thought he was out of jail. Guys.
Take
Be
care.
safe, TJ.
Bye.
661-1440, as usual. TJ entertaining us here at the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Let's.
Wow. The American Nightmare reference.
There it is. How much did you get paid for that?
It's crazy. Yeah, but those vignettes, I mean, that was McMahon's way of just kind of taking whatever respect this guy had away from him, It was crazy.
Yeah, it was funny listening to Sonny get so hot about it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we were all, anybody who had any respect for wrestling or we were just shocked and really appalled at what they did with these vignettes with this guy. It was horrific to watch, and they just took everything from him. And, whether you needed the money or not, I don't know, but, that's selling your soul and becoming something that you were not. And, your long career and how great it was coming back and doing that. Crazy.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like the only way to make someone look like an everyman. You know what I mean? And then once they said he was a son of a plumber, then I'm sure, Vince is like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and the polka dots and all that. It was just kind of just so horrible to watch, especially somebody who was a purist, as I was at the time, and still am to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But, also, the ECW references were, we don't want any punks. It was so amateurish what we were doing. It's almost like glorified college radio nonsense.
It's just so good because it's you guys. And so yeah, I got a call from them. Oh yeah. Tell me about that. What did they say?
Well, it's crazy how polar opposite the show eventually became.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's fascinating to listen back at these early days. Boy, this was just, who knows what it was. It was crazy.
Even when you start trying to sell IWAS, it's not the way you talk like this.
Oh no. No, no. It was totally different. I mean, the evolution of what I went through over the years, over that short time period, the 5 years. If you look at it in the long scope of life, those 5 years, that evolution from how I started and never knowing that it would be my full-time endeavor or job, and then you get more serious about it, and then you try to really make a go of it. And then the way the show kind of transformed itself into an insider show and me becoming a promoter. Yeah, these were interesting shows to listen back to. It's almost like it gives you kind of a cringe effect.
Yeah, some of it's a little weird. But TJ, he's good. He's back.
Yeah, he's he was a staple back then.
Yeah. I didn't keep it, but you end up talking to a woman who really wants you to have a meaningful conversation with George the Animal Steele. She wants you to interview Shawn Michaels because she just thinks he's so dreamy.
Yeah, she was the one that brought up the wrestling for the blind.
Yeah.
She was the same one.
Yeah, she was really smart. You could hear it in the way she would talk, and she was really cool. I don't know if you ever recall meeting her at any of the things, but she sounds a little bit older.
Yeah. I don't remember meeting her.
Yeah. But that's in there for the Patreons who listen to the whole thing. You also call out a caller because he says what his name is, and you list off 3 other aliases that he's used, and he's like, yep. And then Sonny tries to guess one, and it's not him. So, but you do get this one call. Besides that also made me laugh, and it's this one right here.
Now, I understand we got a caller called the Weirdo from Parts Unknown. Let's see what we got here. The Weirdo from Parts Unknown?
Yeah, this is the Weirdo.
Yeah?
The Weirdo.
What's happening?
Not much. Just being weird.
Okay, thanks a lot. Sounded like somebody I knew who it was, actually.
So they received your show at Pilgrim State?
They received my show at Central Isa Pilgrim State in Bellevue. What we're going to do, we got another call? Who is this? Hi, we're on the air?
The Weirdo.
I don't want to talk to them.
What could a man named the Weirdo possibly have to say?
Well, probably not too much. So
instead of calling himself the Weirdo, he should call himself the Momo.
The Momo.
The Momo.
How about the Weewo?
The Weewo.
So
the Weirdo needs a wacko.
He needs a whack in the head.
Absolutely.
Well, obviously, you do get some calls from some crazy listeners, and there must be some insane people out there listening to the program. I'm a little insane myself for doing it. Let's talk.
That was Marty Pereira.
Yeah, towards the end of it, you can hear that you guys definitely know it. Both of them. Both of you know it's him.
Yeah, because he's the one that infamously said the Wu Wazer.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I said, the wheel.
The wheel.
Marty had been ejected and evicted from the studio from the early days of the show. And I guess this was his way of trying to get back in.
I mean, hey, he was on for a minute. I thought it was funny because obviously Bruce knew, and so he patched him through again. Yeah. And he's like, I don't want to die. And I just like that Sonny's getting a kick out of it. He's cracking up over there.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was freaking funny.
That's funny. Did he ever say anything like that around you before? Like, did you know it was a character he had or anything, or was it just him?
No. I guess he was just trying to get back on the air. Because he'd been banned technically.
No way. You're not getting back on this show, pal. So good. I do have this last little clip. It's 2 clips together because the outro is really good, but you have a nice little conversation before it. And then there was just a little bit of back and forth about some of the cards in between. So it's kind of squished together into one little outro clip.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, since you don't have Marty there, the show's been going smooth. Things have been going well. Here you go.
When you see Paulie, tell him my money's on him.
Okay, you were mentioning a little bit a while ago, about the Paulie Dangerously situation fighting Jim Cornette, and you said because of their backgrounds are so different, where Jim Cornette was raised, his mother was very rich, was definitely a yuppie, so to speak, but Paulie Dangerously is like the manager bash, he's like the crazy yuppie, and he comes from a totally different background.
Paulie Dangerously's reputation as he was running numbers in Times Square growing up. He used to run errands for your boys, Fred Blassie, Lou Albano, and the late Grand Wizard.
Yes, he did. Paulie, I remember him when I was covering wrestling years ago, and Paulie was always around with a camera, always willing to run some errands for some of the managers, but obviously he had a motive in mind back then. He was getting tips.
That's right.
And he was getting his foot in the door, and now he's one of the top wrestling managers in the business today.
He's hustled in the most dangerous sections of New York while Jim Cornette was getting manicures, private schools, learning how to play polo, drinking tea.
Mm-hmm.
And besides, Paulie is from New York.
And Paulie has a vicious mind.
Oh, he's mean.
So maybe I'll change my prediction as well after hearing your philosophy on it. We're going to take our last commercial break and come back and wrap this whole thing up right after this. Well, let's do this. Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you run the new Pro Wrestling Spotlight promo? Because there's a lot of people out there say, I don't have wrestling contacts. These are some of the people I've spoken to recently. Let's run this promo.
This is Paul E. Dangerously.
Hi, this is Rick Steamboat.
Hello, everyone. This is the living legend of professional wrestling, Bruno Sammartino.
This is Dr. Death. This is Scott Hall.
This is Jim Cornette.
Wrestling fans, this is Gary Michael Capetta.
This is Terry Funk here. Meaner than a rattlesnake, tougher than shoe leather, more dangerous than a hollow-eyed scorpion. And I'm reminding you to listen to the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. That's right, with John Anthony every Sunday night from 6 till 8 p.m. on 1440 WNYG. And you simple-minded people be there.
Back with the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, just as some of the guests that you'll hear each and every week right here at 1440 WNYG, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight every Sunday. And the number to call is 661-1440. And a bit of a Mets update from Bruce, our producer.
6-1 Mets, 7th inning.
All right, let's go Mets. We'll turn this last 5 minutes into maybe Mets Extra Junior. How's that sound? But Bruce is Bruce has just entered the studio where we're actually on the air, and this is a pleasure to have our producer, Bruce, what's your name, Cohen, Jacobs, Jacoby, what is it?
Well, John, you call me anything you want. Just make sure you call me when it's time for the show.
Okay. You've done a hell of a job here each and every week, and Rob, the engineer, as well. We just appreciate all the hard work that gets put into the Pro Wrestling Spotlight every week. And
well, let me say, it's easy working with Rob. I mean, he's the best engineer in the business. And, John, you make the show so fluid and so natural. How could you make any mistakes here?
Mistake? I could say the biggest mistake here, but I will not mention anything on the air. How's that for time-wise right now? Are we about out of this thing?
For a second there, you sounded like an insurance man that couldn't talk.
Exactly. That's not my game.
No.
I'll tell you what we're going to do right now. We're going to wrap it up, and we're going to be on the program next Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m. with Terry Funk. Terry Funk will be here. We also have interviews with Scott Hall. I'm going to try to get with Lex Luger again. And also, since Ric Flair has made his announcement, before this pay-per-view show, we're going to try to get Ric Flair on this program, and it's going to be an honor for us to do that. And I'll be speaking to some of the promoters this week about getting Ric Flair on this program. So until next week, when we have Terry Funk here, this is John Arezzi That's my real name, actually. This is John Anthony.
We're falling apart.
We're falling apart at the same time. It's the 4th of July weekend, and I haven't even drank anything yet. We'll see you next week.
Wow. Crazy shit there, man.
It's pretty good. I like that. I like how you fell out of it. You're like, oops.
Bruce coming in, I think first time in the studio itself.
Sounds like it.
Mentioning my real name. I mean, there's a lot there. A lot of crazy. Yeah. And the thing about Terry Funk is I had already taped that freaking interview. That interview was long taped. It was taped weeks before that. So working the audience again. Like Terry Funk
trying to tease it for weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think with the, I think that week I might have gotten some feedback that I really had no connections in the wrestling business. It might have been from the WFAN, 3 a.m. segment they did on wrestling with Rich Mancuso, because it was they were starting to, people were starting to talk about my show to him, and he was, maybe said that I have no connections in the business. So.
Yeah. I mean, it was a cool supercut. I dug it,
Yeah, I love that promo. The promo was like, it was kind of like a mishmash of some of the people I had on the show or were bringing on the show, so.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I got a kick out of that. Cracked me up. Bruce coming in with the Mets thing earlier too. Yeah. You say, "Oh, Bruce coming in with late breaking news," and he just kind of like hands you something and walks out. Like you just go to like ad. Like nothing happens.
Still a mainstay in my life to this very day. The New York Mets.
Yep.
And that opportunity to to each and every week work with Terry and all the guests that appeared on the Terry Collins show this season.
Yeah.
And, with Darryl Strawberry next. And I mean, it was like every week. I mean, it was just kind of like dream come true. Pinch me. Am I really experiencing this?
Yeah. It's awesome.
The thing you had the most passion for all your life, wrestling was certainly a big part of it, but Mets have always been, that was it for me, and to be able to have this season, a magical season by the Mets, and be able to talk to so many of the past and present members of the New York Mets has been just kind of one of the best things I think I ever did in my life.
You can hear it too throughout this whole series as we go. Like every now and again, something's happening with the Mets and it's affecting your mood. You're in a good mood because the Mets. You're in a bad mood because the Mets. You're distracted during segments because you're keeping up with Met scores and stuff. Like it's there. It's prevalent. And that's one of the fun things I like about when I dig into these old ones is you hear it. You know what I mean? Like the one thing that we find out no more about you is the more we dig up old tapes, the more we find out that you're exactly who you say you are and always have been,
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy that now that, I'm preparing for the next Collins show with Darryl Strawberry, that I know I did an interview with him his first weekend when he was called up in May of 1983. So I'm going to look for that. And if I have it, I want to put it on the show when we tape with him to play it for him.
Yeah. Yeah. If you find it, you send it to me right away.
I will.
Because that could be really cool. But,
yeah, he'd be shocked.
Yeah. It was a short interview, I imagine?
Yeah, 5 minutes less. He was a rookie, and, he'd been touted as, the Mets' hope, bringing them back to winning ways. And he was a kid, the next Ted Williams. And I remember the weekend they called him up in May, and I had gotten credentials and got a chance to sit down and talk to him in the dugout. I had him sign my Mets media guide with the date on it. I think it was like May 8th or May 13th of 83.
That was awesome.
It was the very, very first weekend ever in the major leagues.
I think it's awesome. I think it'd be great. I want to hear what he had to say back then when he was just getting started and didn't know what to say yet, He
was a kid.
So, yeah. All right, John. I mean, that's what I got on this one. This was a fun one. It seemed, it was a dense one. A lot was in there, but it was good.
It was.
You know?
Yeah, I recommend that everybody who wants to hear the entire thing, the 2 hours, it's on Patreon, patreon.com/John Arezzi. And it's all there. And I'll be putting up next week's, the show we're reviewing next week, show number 14. So everyone can get a chance to listen to that before they hear the podcast. So that's for patrons.
Sounds good. Thank you again for letting me dig in with this one with you, John.
You got it, my friend. All right, listen, we will see you next week, and that's going to wrap up this edition of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can do that at John Arezzi. That's Instagram, X, Threads. For Marsh, it's on X, at Ref Marsh, and Instagram at Wrestling on the Rocks. I want to thank Marsh for all the work that he does on not only in this show, but the other shows as well. I want to thank each and every one of the patrons for their contributions to help with the production costs for this program. And I'd like you all to check out the YouTube channel. There's so much content on the YouTube channel as well. So go to youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. That'll wrap it up for this week. Until next time we get together and relive more wrestling history with you, this is John Arezzi for Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Have a great week, everyone.
Well, fans, that's all the time we have this week. I'm John Arezzi. See you next time, everybody.